Hello, hi there. If you didn't catch yesterday's video, I had my friend Jared on and we really dissected the decade of the 2010s and ranked the years from best to worst, obviously, in terms of hip-hop music. And when doing the year 2010, it was quite apparent that there was obviously one album standing head and shoulders above the rest, and that was My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. But aside from that album, it was hard to kind of pinpoint the movements of rap music in that particular year and just where exactly the genre was at. It was kind of a transitional period. Obviously, you can check out yesterday's video for the full dissection, but I felt upon reflection that one of the albums that really contributed to that confusion, for me at least, was Eminem's Recovery. It comes to him in an interesting point in his career, in his discography, where he's obviously started off his career with that classic 3-album run, Slim Shady, Marshall Mathers, and Eminem Show. From there, he kind of has a bit of a fall off and he retires basically, and he stays retired for about 5 years. And then he comes back with Relapse, which now in hindsight, I feel like the general consensus is a far better album than Recovery. But at the time, Relapse was considered a bit of a flop and a very strange direction. Obviously, the accents got their fair due of criticism. But when Recovery came out, some felt that it was a return to form. I think people appreciated the transparency and the kind of lack of a gimmick. But since then, there's also been a school of thought that was Eminem's true fall-off, that Recovery was really the plunge into commercialism and pop music. And obviously, we saw him kind of going to Rihanna for the big feature, for the hit song Love the Way You Lie, and just moments like that. Obviously, Pink on the album as well. So I think it is a very divisive album for the hip-hop community. And I think that with the benefit of hindsight, obviously now that we've had albums such as Revival and Kamikaze and Music to Be Murdered By, I think the album almost takes on a new context. And now looking back at it in hindsight, for me at least, I think it's aged particularly well. I think considering those albums and just looking back, it wasn't all doom and gloom as people were saying. I understand the criticisms. I'll get to that in a bit later in the video. But I also think that the album is worth revising, and I think it's worth people going back to and listening with 2021 ears and seeing what they think about it. So that's kind of what I wanted to do with this video. I'm going to start off by kind of doing a track by track, just give my thoughts as we go along. And then I also wanted to, as I said, unpack a few of the criticisms that have been said about the album, either whether it was in 2010 or whether it's a bit more recent than that. So that's all coming up. Stay with us on Austin Thinks. Yeah, so kicking off the track list, Eminem starts us off with Cold Wind Blows, which I actually really appreciate. I'm interested to know what other people kind of think of this song. I might get into that a bit later. But what I loved the first thing that strikes me about this song is just the showmanship. The way he says he's starting his album basically with this a cappella section about how, some things stay the same, some things change. And to me, that's one attribute that's really strong about all of Eminem's music, is this kind of performative aspect. Obviously, he really leans into it with those Eminem shows and encore covers, but I've always felt that he's a bit of a natural showman, so I actually really enjoy him starting the album this way and really just kind of being in your face about, here I am, like, pay attention. Even if to you he doesn't deliver a quality album, you kind of got to appreciate the confidence, I feel like, to start an album in that way. So Cold Wind Blows is definitely up there in this song, in the track list for me. I really enjoy the beat by Just Blaze. I think the snare and the piano really complement his vocal tone, his aggressive kind of delivery. There's definitely lines on this song that by 2021 standards are pretty problematic. Look, I'll be honest though, with this channel, I don't really want to get into the matter of what's right and what's wrong in terms of, political correctness, obviously, because this album is over 10 years old now. It's kind of an ever-changing situation. So, of course, for its time, it was obviously controversial. For now, it'd probably be worth cancelling him over. So, yeah, you say what you want about that, but it was definitely a product of its era. So I'm not here to judge, but the lyrics in this one, for me, definitely not as strong as his other albums. So I think the first time you put on this album, that's probably one of the first thing that really stands out about it, is that it's not as strong of a lyrical display. as was Marshall Mathers LP, or all the way up to Relapse. I think it's a little more simple. But at times, I think that actually does work in his favor. I really enjoy the lines, try to diss me, I'll slaughter you. I put that on everything, like everyone does with auto-tune. The last thing you want to have me do is spit out a rhyme and say I was writing this and I thought of you. I think that to me is it's simple. He's not doing the whole syllable, multi-syllablic kind of thing. He's just kind of keeping it straight down the line, and he's saying what he means and he's meaning what he's saying. And I think that's really effective for him. So at times the more directive style of lyricism I think works for him. But yeah, I definitely see both sides of the fence when it comes to that. Let's move on. Track 2, Talking to Myself. So I really enjoy this song as well. I think I could definitely see how it's a bit of a generic hook by Kobe, even the beat perhaps. But what I love about it is just how transparent he is. I've never actually heard a rapper open up about being in such a dark place that they've become envious of their peers. That's something that takes a fair bit of balls to really admit on a song, you know, and not only that, but go on to name drop guys like Lil Wayne, guys like Kanye West, and basically say like, hey, I wanted to diss you guys because I hated myself and I was jealous of what you guys were doing. So yeah, I think that actually takes a significant amount of emotional growth to go from being in that place where you're having those thoughts to not only being self-aware of those thoughts, but actually putting it out into the universe and wearing it on your sleeve and basically saying like, hey, this is where I was at. It's probably one of the more commendable aspects of recovery is just how transparent he was able to be. It's almost like that Lorde thing in Lorde's music. She often says things where I'm like, this could be really embarrassing. Like I could listen to this and definitely get secondhand embarrassment of what you're saying. But it's almost like she owns it so much. She's so like just unashamed of what she's saying. She's like, this is the truth and I can't be ashamed of the truth because I'm living it. And you can't help but respect it. And so I think this song definitely has that aspect to it. It's one of the few times on the album, this happens a great many times actually, where he's denouncing Relapse, which is quite interesting because since the release of those two albums, I feel like out of the two, Relapse has definitely aged better for a lot of people. If they're ranking Eminem albums, I'd say Relapse comes out on top more often than not. But let's move on. So track 3, we've got On Fire. This is an absolute classic hip-hop beat by Denon. If you're a fan of classic hip-hop, I feel like this beat has to knock. Like you've got to appreciate the just the soaring kind of, I don't know if it's vocal. It almost reminds me of like The Exorcist or something. So I don't know where exactly the sample's from, but it's really cool stuff. I also think his voice sounds really good. I mentioned this in yesterday's video, but I actually think in 2010, Eminem was striking a really nice, a really good sweet spot with his voice, where he was able to kind of enunciate aggressively, but he also kind of had a really nice tone, and there's bits where his voice kind of drops in and out. It's really, I think it works well for him, and it certainly works well for this style of production. I mean, we've got a little joke since then. I think he's almost had this Homer Simpson-like inflection in his voice where it sounds kind of like dull and blunt and like a kind of middle-aged white man, kind of dad voice. I think if you want to find the prime example of that, listen to him on Medicine Man by Dr. Dre. The way he comes into that song, we always kind of laughed at. But it's just, his voice has really fallen apart for me since this album. But it's a different kind of voice to obviously the early days where he's going really high register, comical, cartoony thing. It's not that. But I think this is the best version of Eminem's kind of grown-up voice. The big criticism, though, I have for this song is that this is where lyrically Eminem is really starting a trend of saying a whole lot of nothing as long as it rhymes. And that is really, I think, it's been problematic for his music since then. It's really tainted it for me. I think, yeah, it's a tough one because for a lot of people, they kind of enjoy the randomness. They enjoy the multisyllabic rhyme schemes at any cost. But for me, I felt like he was able to do that technicality in the Marshall Mathers LP, for instance, but still say things with substance. Still give you something that you can follow along and actually paint a scene for you. I think the best example is Criminal off Marshall Mathers LP, where he talks about arrive in 5 minutes, hide the disguises, all that kind of stuff. If the eyewitness, you know what I mean? Or he's rhyming every word, and he's also painting a little story, a little scene that you can follow along and actually kind of be immersed in. And I think that was what made him kind of what he was in the early days. So yeah, it feels like he's either going simple on the technicalities, or he's choosing technicalities in favor of not saying anything at all. So yeah, that's probably it's probably a problem with this song, but also the album as a whole. I do love the self-awareness though. I love how he says, I just put 2 bullshit hooks in between 2 long ass verses. If you mistook this for a song, look. I think that's hilarious. I also love the self-awareness from Eminem. The lyrics, I just put a bullshit hook in between 2 long-ass verses. If you mistook this for a song, look. That whole thing, it's just like, it's hilarious. It's just like, just on the nose, like, this is what it is. Like, this is what you just bought. I think that self-awareness is probably something weaning off his music in recent years, especially with him obviously getting more political. It feels like he's not kind of as aware to how he's coming across to people. But moving on, Won't Back Down. Being an Australian, I'm probably not as aware of the regionality of rap music and the different nuances and motifs that the different areas kind of put into their production styles and their accents and all that kind of stuff, the stuff that builds, California music and Atlanta music and all that. But to me, when this beat starts, it's like, oh, that's Detroit. That sounds... whatever idea I have about Detroit, this sounds like Detroit to me. It's the kind of the muddy, dirty, kind of down low guitar as it comes in. It's like, yes. And it really feels like Eminem is in his element for this song. I think this song cops a little bit of flack for its hook, the way Pink is used. Obviously the lyrics on the hook, Won't Back Down. It's very obvious, it's very generic. But I think Pink is used solidly. I don't think it's exceptional. I think it serves its purpose, but yeah, really the star of the show here is the verses on the beat. I think the beat matches Eminem's vocal tone, just like On Fire. The beat matches Eminem's vocal tone perfectly. Let's move along to White Trash Party. This is the first weak song on the album to me. For some reason, since 2009, almost every Eminem album has to have a song about Eminem going to some kind of party. And it's like, the dude's 40, he's going on 50 now. I think he might be 50. He obviously lives like a recluse. Like, no one believes it. No one believes that you're just going in the Cadillac on a Friday night and hitting the clubs up in Detroit. Like, I don't believe that. So when you talk about it, it just feels... It's just bizarre going from songs like Talking to Myself and songs like Going Through Changes to something like this. It's so far removed from Eminem's real feelings, Eminem's real life, his real situation, that it almost takes you out of the experience altogether. It's like, okay, so this is obviously not true. This is obviously a dishonest song. What else is dishonest? What else are you putting on? And I think it actually has a wider negative effect on the album than just the song alone because of that reason. In my opinion, I would have cut the song. I think the track list is already a touch bloated, and I think, for all the reasons I've just said, I think the album would have been better served if this song was cut. But let's move along. So we got Going Through Changes, and I'll probably rank all the songs at the end, but I think this one could easily come out on top. To me, this song is a genuine 10 out of 10 to me, a properly great hip-hop song. We've got the gorgeous Ozzy Osbourne sample, the gorgeous beat, the string sections, the way the sample is kind of processed to feel nostalgic. It feels like a distant memory. It's really beautiful. Eminem's lyrics, the way he's kind of able to walk you step by step through the thought process of a depressed person all the way to a person who is completely willing to commit suicide, and you completely empathize. There's never a point where he loses you or you feel like, oh, this is just the song talking, this is just over dramatized for the sake of a good song. Like, nah, this feels real. This feels like, oh, this is why he had to go away. And so it was a really beautiful song, and I just imagine what it would have been like to have tracked Eminem's career since the early days and had so much of an emotional stake in his situation. To hear this song and the amount of closure, especially with that last verse, I feel like this song could have made a very good last song on his retirement album. Kind of like how the Beatles had The End off Abbey Road. It was just the perfect note to go out on. And I feel like this was the perfect chance to get closure. The way he kind of talks about his regrets with his ex-wife Kim. It was just beautiful. It was, I know a lot of people don't like this kind of mature Eminem, this kind of moral high ground Eminem, but I think in moments like these, where he's actually kind of self-reflecting and coming back and apologizing and giving closure, I think that's when this version of Eminem is at its very best. So again, we're going to get into criticisms a bit later, but I'd be interested to see if anyone has genuine criticisms on this song in particular, because I feel like it's a very likable move for Eminem to be this transparent about his situation. One line I really like about it is, drug dealers hang around me like yes men, and they're going to do whatever I says when I says it. It's in their best interest to protect their investment. I just wish every rapper was as self-aware of yes men around them as this, because it's just it's one of those lines. It's just like, it just demonstrates exactly how he thinks, and it's got that cool kind of analytical thing about it that Jay-Z's music has, where it's really like kind of giving you a look into how he's unpacking a social situation, how he's unpacking the people around him, how he's observing and watching. So I think that's really cool. But anyways, let's move on. So we've got Not Afraid. This song to me isn't so great. I think it wants to continue this sentimental thing of going through changes, but it turns it into somewhat of a victory lap, and it ends up feeling a bit too big, almost superficial. Going through changes every step of the way was boots on the ground, like this is what happened, this is how I felt at the time. This song, it just feels like it's trying to take that leap up, like, I'm here now, I'm in the sky, everything's blissful, and it's like, I don't know, just something about it really grates me. It's just like, it's almost like that white trash party thing where it's like going a bit superficial, and then it makes you think about everything else, like, okay, well, what else shouldn't I believe? What else should I take with a grain of salt? What else are you exaggerating on, That being said, though, I'm not going to put this song in the trash pile completely, because I think at the end of the day, this really is how he felt. It's not a disingenuous feeling. It's more just how he executed that feeling. It became a bit glossy, but the sentiment itself is obviously genuine. And I think whatever you want to say about the song, it still kind of holds up on that laurel. Is just that it is an honest feeling. It's an honest account of where he's at. That being said, I think let's go to the bridge, because, that's not good. That's not good at all. I just can't keep living this way. So starting today, I'm breaking out of the cage. I'm standing up. I'm going to face my demons. I'm a man up. I'm going to hold my ground. I've had enough. I'm so fed up. Time to put my life together back right now. It's just like, yeah, I mean, I mucked that up a bit, but yeah, the way he kind of delivers it as well, it's just, it's melodramatic, I don't think we needed it. Moving on though, Seduction. So this to me is an example of his aggressive tone being misplaced. It seems like no matter what, it was like he had the plan A, aggressive tone no matter what, and it just didn't fit in certain situations. The song's supposed to be about seduction. It's intended to seduce. Why are you rapping so abrasively? Why do you need to deliver it like this? Don't you have a softer mode you can kind of tap into? Is there a feature you can call upon to get into that pocket and catch that vibe with you? I also think the beat is kind of boring. It feels like you would find this in YouTube, like kind of under Eminem type beat. That's why I've always kind of felt Eminem needs an executive producer to pick his beats for him. I find his taste in groove, in production, is kind of non-existent. I think when he picks his own beats, he goes with very obvious decisions, and I think this is an example of that. It's just kind of like the synths in the background. It's just like, I don't know, it's very vanilla. It's very obvious. It's very plain, and it just doesn't do a whole lot for me. There's not a lot of it doesn't have a replay value. It doesn't have things that you come back on the fourth listen and the fifth listen and you pick up and you're just like, I never heard that before. It's like once you've heard the beat once, you've heard everything. And and that's just the story of the song really for me. I also love the bit where he says, what does he say? Let's slow it down some. And then the down actually gets pitched down. I mean, talk about a relic of 2010. It's funny. That's a bit of a dead cliche in hip hop nowadays. And it's track number 9. We've got Just Blaze continuing his hot streak with No Love. Cinematic, spacey, taking its time, letting the beat build. It's really an awesome piece of production, this one. And I was also thinking, between this sample and the Ozzy Osbourne sample from earlier, it must have been a bloody expensive album to clear. I love Wayne on this song. It's funny, because in 2010, I don't think any two rappers had fan bases that hated each other more than Lil Wayne and Eminem. It was like almost two polar opposites in terms of your idea of what rap should be, what hip-hop should be. But the funny thing is they probably had a lot more in common than people really realized. I mean, they were both incredible lyricists, just different styles of lyricism. Wayne was a lot more giving you quotables, and he wasn't trying to fill out the verse with as many words. He was kind of really taking his time. I love the line on this song, be good or be good at it, just things like that. I also love how he kind of does his thing in terms of shouting out Young Money and obviously the Bloods and things like that. But at the end, he finds a way to tie it back into the theme of the album. No Love Lost and No Love Found. The theme of the song, rather. But it's stuff like that. It's like Lil Wayne is really an incredible feature artist. You feel like you get him on a song and he just fills out exactly what you need. He's going to tie it all back together. He's going to give you quotables. He's going to give you moments. So I think Lil Wayne on this song really is at his best. And Eminem coming with a really solid verse as well. Obviously, like I said, a completely different take on how to approach a rap verse. He's going a lot faster. It's less about quotables and more about wordplay. Obviously, the Monopoly on top of my game bars, it is what it is. But another thing that I was noticing about this song, just listening to it recently, was another Kanye name drop. And it got me thinking, was Eminem kind of trying to posture himself with the cool kids almost? Like he's back in the game, he's taken 5 years off, and he's really trying to put himself in a certain conversation, almost like, hey, I'm still here, hey, talk about me next to the Waynes and next to the Kanyes. I don't know. I feel like Eminem was kind of in that mode. He was really trying to get back to where he was. He was trying to get back in the zeitgeist, as it were. But a really solid song. I quite enjoy No Love. I think it plays well in the modern day. Moving on to track 10, Spacebound. So for me, this is actually a really solid love song from Eminem. There's not a lot of them, but this is an example of him kind of going to that aggressive style and actually having it pay off. I think because this is a more emotionally charged, kind of desperate take on the love story. It's kind of at the end of the relationship. There's a lot of insecurity and hurt and frustration, and it really comes through in his delivery here. The hook, even while commercial, I would say it's probably the best hook on the entire album. I love the high pitched singing. I think even though it's pop rap, it's well made pop rap. It's well produced. The way the verses end with that snare hit and then a moment of silence and then the full instrumentation coming through with the chorus. It's really good stuff. I think this, I'm not sure how this song got received, but compared to the other more poppy songs on the album, obviously Not Afraid and Love the Way You Lie, I feel like Spacebound is really up there in terms of it. It might get misconstrued as a commercial song, but I think it's leaps and bounds above the other two. But yeah, moving on. A very good song. But at track 11, we have Cinderella Man. So for the longest time, this song was my favorite song on the album. So for that reason, it's kind of hard for me to listen to it with so many different memories attached to the song. It's hard to kind of hear it with fresh ears or as someone might in 2021. But my thoughts on it now is that I like Kobe on it a lot more than his other feature. I think he's almost doing a bit of a Nate Dogg. I wouldn't be surprised if it was almost a reference track for if they did get a Nate Dogg feature. I love the electric guitar in the background that kind of builds with the pre-chorus. I think that's actually kind of tasteful from Eminem. I know the drums are very stadium rock kind of thing. It's kind of a weird choice, but the electric guitar, I think, pulls everything together and makes it feel kind of, I don't know, like one vision, like it's meant to be there. Eminem, strangely, with another Struck by Thunder bar. So I'm not sure what that's all about. It's kind of, it's him. It's him kind of, I guess, reflecting on how closely he was to death and how grateful he is to be there. And I think that's really what the song boils down to, isn't it? It's the whole idea of, it's kind of the not afraid thing, isn't it? It's I was in the depths of depression. I could have easily died where I was at, but I didn't, and I'm here now, and I'm not going to take anything for granted. And in my opinion, he just kind of executes it a lot better than he did in Not Afraid. He kind of, I don't know, it's less of that glossy thing on top. It's less trying to be likable, and it's more just that, like I said, boots on the ground thing where he's just kind of converting straight from his heart about what he's feeling and the emotion of it. And I think it's really well executed, in my opinion at least. Probably my favorite line on this one is, "Flip the world upside down and made it rain upward." I think that's really cool. It's kind of, he's really got a godlike complex on this song, and I think it feels earned. It feels fitting. It doesn't feel like he's reaching to kind of sound himself out to be more pumped up than he really is. You know, it feels like he really believes what he's saying, which obviously is the marking of a good piece of work. But moving along, so number 12, track number 12, we have 25 to Life. This has another little relic from 2010 that you don't really hear as much, and that's the talking at the start with the high pass filter and the little bit of delay. It's funny. It's like, he's really trying to warm people up to the verse he's about to spit. I don't know. You don't really hear that these days. Like, I can't imagine Kendrick kind of doing that. It's very funny to kind of look back, and 2010 really isn't that long ago, but there's so many tropes from that era that are just non-existent nowadays. I guess music really does move very quickly. So, this is Eminem kind of doing that common thing where he's personifying rap music, his relationship with rap music, into a romantic relationship. I think it's kind of a decent take on the trope. I think where Common, it was very, rose-tinted glasses, very romantic. This is more like Spacebound, the later stages of the relationship where everything's kind of breaking down and you're really having to deal with the fact of, being alone without this entity where, Eminem kind of breaking up with rap music and his story of retiring and what was going through his head at the time. I actually think the parallel of the marriage to rap and I guess a marriage to a person becomes really effective in certain standout lines. One of them was where he goes on, "Go marry someone else and make them famous, take away their freedom like you did to me, treat them like you don't need them and they ain't worthy of you." Like stuff like that. It really applies to both sides of the parallel really effectively. And I think it's a pretty articulate song. It's a good way to kind of get into his headspace, because that's what a lot of recovery is, isn't it? It's not really just Eminem in 2010. It's really all the years that we missed out on and his thought processes and what he was going through. And it's kind of a reflective album, really talking about all the different trials and tribulations of the last 4 or 5 years. And this song, so touches on something that I guess you probably don't hear as much from rappers, that feeling of wanting to retire. Like, I know Logic and The Game both are currently in retirement. I guess Logic's coming out of it. But, I didn't really hear from them kind of this in-depth of their breakdown, the breakdown of their relationship with rap music and what's really driving them to want to give it up and stuff. So, I think this is a pretty strong song. The chorus is, I give or take that. It's kind of a consistent through recovery choruses like these, but it is what it is. Moving along, so track 13, So Bad. In my opinion, this is Eminem's best hook on the album in terms of the ones he actually performs himself, and it's a really awesome Dr. Dre beat as well. So those two alone being coupled, it's it's as good a collaboration as Eminem and Dre could have in 2010, because Eminem's voice has changed so much since since 1999 when they first started making music together, and even Dre's production style, it was getting. I don't think it's as potent as it was in 1999. I think it's getting a bit stale at this point, but this is a beat from him that's really strong with the horns. It's really him in his wheelhouse doing what he does best, and Eminem sounds great on it. So it's kind of like a 2001 kind of moment. The album 2001, I could see them kind of doing a collab like this on that album. I like the loud animated delivery on this, but unlike the other songs, it's not him being angry. He doesn't sound so aggressive. He sounds large, he sounds loud, but it's in a more comical, kind of easy way. I think he struck a really nice tone with this song. And I think for those reasons, the song actually plays really well these days. This is something that I would definitely chuck on and be able to vibe out to. I think the aggressive stuff at other points in the album doesn't play as well these days. It sounds very over the top, and it's not something that I'd really, want to listen to in the car with other people and stuff, but this is definitely one that I maybe would. Even the bridge, I know I was shitting on the bridges earlier, but the bridge on this one is actually pretty solid. So props to him for that. And a funny line on this one, he's talking about how when he's grabbing a girl, she's panicking, and then he's saying, hey, don't stop something that's organic. It's like, well... It's not really organic if you're having to grab her and she's panicking. So, yeah, but, that's Eminem for you, ladies and gentlemen. But, yeah, let's keep moving. So, number 14, track 14, Almost Famous. A bizarre intro with this. I could almost taste it. It's kind of cool. It's kind of weird. But, I'm all for the weird stuff. So, power to it. I do like the topic. I enjoy Eminem talking about that feeling of coming up into the industry and being found and finding himself. I think this is something that he's still got a lot of leftover energy from that era. Obviously, when he made the movie 8 Mile, I think that was a product of him being removed from that Detroit hustle spirit, but wanting to tap into it again and wanting to tell that story. And I think this is just an extension of that. So whenever he's kind of in that mode, I actually really appreciate listening to it. I know it gets tired for some people because it's a point that he's gone back to a great many times, and he's made that song many times. But this is by no means a bad song, and it doesn't feel repetitive in the context of his discography. It feels like he's saying things in this song that are kind of exclusive to this song, and yeah, I actually really enjoy it. It's a hook with another female singer, Liz Rodriguez, I believe. In my opinion, it's not a commercial hook. I know it kind of is poppy, I guess, inherently when you get a female on, they're singing and it's on a commercial thing. But in my opinion, the tone isn't as kind of melodramatic or glossy as some of the other female hooks. It's a bit more kind of integrated into the song, a bit like Pink's hook earlier on the album. And I also think this one's got a bit of a bounce to it. And then when she kind of goes into the be careful what you wish for, that whole thing, I like the showmanship. It's very theatrical. It's like, I don't know, it's just that thing with Eminem where he likes delivering those performative elements for you. And I think he always does it pretty well. So, yeah, I don't mind that song. Love the Way You Lie, track number 15. This is a song I probably do mind. There are tasteful pop songs, there are cut and dry pop songs. There are interesting pop songs, and then there are factory pop songs. And to me, this song is the latter on both accounts. From the hook to the drums to the synths that come in for the hook, even the music video with the house burning, it's all very obvious. It's all very safe. It feels like every idea in this song was kind of like the first idea. It didn't feel like they dug very deep to find something interesting, find a kind of new way to go about it. So, yeah, that's probably my main gripe with this song is just how safe it all is. I think Spacebound as a love song and as a pop song functions a lot better. I don't know if it would have done as well. Obviously, Love the Way You Lie was exceptionally successful commercially. So, I guess you can't argue with the numbers. It served its purpose on that front. But yeah, in terms of replay value in 2021, it just doesn't sit with me well at all. get a lever, watch out the window. I guess that's why they call it window pane. Yikes. I guess it's kind of brave, though. I'll give it that. It's kind of brave assuming the role of a domestic abuser on a song with a woman who has actually been domestically abused publicly. So it's a very strange dynamic in the song. It's a very strange angle for Eminem to take. I would have loved to sit in the studio sessions and hear in the conception of this song, like what they were trying to get at. Like, were they really going for something that was an important statement, an important message that they wanted to put out into the world? Because I think if you made this song nowadays, it couldn't help but be an important message, for better or worse. You're not making this song trivially nowadays. It's not just a theme. If you're making this song nowadays, you're really opening up a lot of dialogue and conversation. So I just wonder if that was the case in 2010. But yeah, for that reason, it's probably not something that would necessarily come out nowadays for a lot of reasons. But yeah, not his strongest song in my opinion. Track 16, You're Never Over. There was a time on YouTube where every generic rap beat you ever heard, every type beat, I remember there was this one guy, directbeats.com, and every beat had the exact drum pattern that this song has. And for that reason, I'm going to have to say Just Blaze takes his first L on the album. It's just, the beat is just not hitting for me, not compared to, what did he do? Cold Wind Blows, and I think he did No Love. So yeah, definitely the weakest out of those ones. It's a tough song to talk about because all the production elements I'm not a fan of whatsoever, but I can't shit on the song because at the end of the day, he is literally talking about his best friend being dead, him on the being on the deathbed, looking forward to seeing his best friend, his guardian angel, him basically surrendering to death and saying, I would rather be with my friend than be alive. And so that's like, it's very, it's heavy. It's really heavy material. I think, and I'll get to this, I think this probably should have been the album closer. I didn't think it needed that little Untitled song afterwards, but we'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, so the production elements, the singing, I don't like. I don't really enjoy the sound of this song, but geez, the message and the lyrics, it's so potent. It does, I could definitely see, again, if you were tracking Eminem's career and you'd followed him over the years, I could see this really hitting home for you. It's a really emotional song. It's a really emotional moment. And I do appreciate it. Although it's one of the weakest songs, it's probably not one that I would cut. If I was to A&R this album, it's probably not one that I'd take off. I think it does serve a purpose. Although the track list is a touch bloated, I would rather revise the song and revise certain elements than completely throw the baby out with the bathwater. Another touch that they made on this song that I actually quite enjoy is the female vocals in that little post-chorus. I feel like they could have brought that more to the forefront and let Eminem's singing take a backseat in this song. There was just, a few mixing decisions that I don't necessarily agree with and I don't think served the song particularly well. But in terms of an idea, a concept, this is a good note, I think, for the album to end on. Unfortunately, though, it doesn't. So we've got track number 17, Untitled. I believe on the original release, this was actually a hidden track. It wasn't listed on the back cover. So I guess that's kind of cool, but it's tough. It's a solid song. It's got that showmanship. It's got that cool kind of circus sample. It would have functioned fine if it was in another point of the album. It could have replaced White Trash Party or Seduction or one of those, but it's just that he just touched on the note of him wanting to die to meet his guardian angel. I don't want to hear him follow that up with how good he is at rapping. It doesn't feel conclusive. It doesn't feel consequential compared to that. It just feels like a really kind of damp way to end the album. I don't know. It really takes the sting off the ending. So for that reason, I think I would really rather cut it than keep it here, to be honest, if that was the only option, to have it in this spot, just take it off completely. Because, like I said, You're Never Over. I mean, look, in my opinion, if I was going to sequence this album, which maybe I should. Maybe that would be a fun video idea. But I probably would have put Going Through Changes at the end. I think that was because Going Through Changes actually had that fourth verse that really had the kind of lighter finish to it. The closure, the apologies, setting the score right, and I don't know, that was just a really nice sentiment to end the album on. So yeah, this Untitled song was definitely not the best option in terms of an album closer. Anyway, I wanted to move on to the definitive tracklist ranking. Number 17, we're going with White Trash Party. Not a great song. Definitely not something that I would have ever listened to if it wasn't for this video. Number 16, Love the Way You Lie. Again, too commercial, too glossy, too safe. 15, Not Afraid. A bit more of a sentiment, but that glossy layer on top, unneeded. 14, Seduction. Getting a bit better, but still he's picking the wrong tones and he's not hitting the mark. So those 4 are probably the ones I'd cut and bring it down to a 13-song album. But anyway, going on, we've got number 13, You're Never Over. So I just talked about that one, but yeah, it's a nice sentiment, not the greatest execution. 12, Almost Famous. This is where I'm getting into kind of likable songs. I actually quite enjoy Almost Famous. I like the story he's weaving on this one. 11, 25 to Life. Strong parallel, really articulately put the way he does the comparison between the marriage to a person and a marriage to rap music itself. 10, Untitled. So that might be surprisingly high given how critical I was of it. I think my criticisms of it were more to do with its placement rather than the song itself. So number 9, On Fire. Great beat, really enjoyable song, classic hip hop. Number 8, Won't Back Down. I love the guitar on this. I think this song cops a lot of undue hate. I think this is Eminem really in his wheelhouse. Number 7, Cold Wind Blows. So this is where I get to the really strong songs on the album. I think from 7 all the way to 1, this is a really formative piece of work. So Cold Wind Blows, really awesome introduction, showmanship, hard piano, really awesome. 6, Spacebound. Definitely the best commercial song on this album. Could have led with it, and I think if this was the one kind of hit single on the album, it would have done the album a lot of favors. 5, Talking to Myself. I guess I'm a sucker for the more introspective kind of honest accounts of the depression and those years. I just guess that resonates with me. So yeah, Talking to Myself. I just love how honest he is on this song, and it really hits home. And it's well executed. 4, Cinderella Man. So really good pump-up song. I like like I said, I like the guitar. I like the drums. And I think his delivery, out of all the songs on this album, I think the aggressive delivery that he clearly wants to go to is best tailored to this song. So number 3, No Love. In my opinion, it's more carried by the sample, the beat, and Lil Wayne. I think Eminem's pretty good on the song. But yeah, for all those other reasons, this is an exceptional song. I really enjoy No Love, and I think the top 3 are the ones that really play well in 2021. So number 2, I'm going with So Bad. Classic Dr. Dre Eminem collaboration, the horns, just the lyrics, the way Eminem's not taking it too seriously. Really cool song. And of course, number 1, Going Through Changes. I think this is a classic hip-hop song. I would actually go so far as to say that. I think it's a classic hip-hop song. It's a memorable song in Eminem's discography, and it's definitely one that I go back to fairly often. So yeah, that's my ranking of the track list. Let's move along now. So I'm just going through a few internet forums trying to understand the criticisms for the album, and obviously going to give my take to their take. So one of the things off the bat is that Eminem has a lot of syllable, multisyllabic rhyme scheme pile-ups with really nothing quotable to say, a lot of cringeworthy lines and nothing quite memorable about it. And this was definitely something I brought up in my review. Maybe I don't prioritize that element as much as this person obviously does, but to to me, the lack of quotables does definitely hurt the album. It definitely drops the album below a lot of his earlier work, and it's also the fact that, as this person says, it's not just unquotable, but it's actually cringeworthy and just corny at certain bits, which is completely fair. I think Eminem does go a bit too hard on the wordplay, and as with wordplay, you're gonna run into dad puns eventually, and that's kind of what he does at some point. So yeah, it's not great in that regard. I totally get that criticism. Another being that Not Afraid is a standout for just excruciating lines. So we've got, okay, stop playing with the scissors and shit, cut the crap. I shouldn't have to rhyme these words in a rhythm for you to know it's a rap. So yeah, I mean, again, as we're talking about, it's not very potent. It doesn't really cut through. It doesn't give you anything to kind of do the stank face or quote to your friends or remember in any particular way. But I would counter that the way that he's delivering it and kind of some of the simplicity of the lyricism really takes the forefront with this one, and I think that holds the album up enough. Again, this isn't a massive praise for Recovery. I'm not coming here telling you it's a 10 out of 10. I think it's a solid 6 or a 7, but I just don't think it's worth a lot of the hate that it gets. And another criticism that I'm reading is that every producer that appears on this album is giving Eminem their most watered down, kind of generic version of their particular sound, their brand. I think it is kind of fair. I did mention this to a degree when I was talking about Seduction and the way that it was almost like an Eminem type beat. It was a very obvious choice for Eminem, very safe. And I feel like this speaks to Eminem more than it does the production team. Just the fact that he's leaning towards such obviously tailored beats. He's not really going outside his wheelhouse and challenging himself with experimental and interesting sounds. And look, I know Eminem's never been the most experimental production. I don't need him on a Danny Brown type beat. It doesn't have to be that, but it would just be nice to hear him kind of maybe executively produced by someone else and have them pick his beats for him so that we're not constantly kind of being beaten over the head with the lowest common denominator Eminem production. That being said, I think there are some really, really solid beats on this album. Even if they are very Eminem tailored, even if they are a watered down version of what we're used to from that producer, the beats stand up nonetheless. They hit, they go well with his style, and there are memorable moments throughout the production on this album, going through changes, those dreamy string sections, cold wind blows with that hard piano, a lot of really cool moments on the production. I think a lot of people also didn't like the rap rock hybrid, which there's not a lot of discussion here because you either like it or you don't, it either hits for you or it doesn't. And for me, that just feels like Eminem in his element, and I think that's where he belongs. Not every rapper can pull it off, and I just think Eminem is one of the ones that can. So when you hear the electric guitar seep into Cinderella Man, it just feels like, Eminem coming home. It feels right. It feels natural. So I actually do not have a criticism for that particular aspect. Another criticism is about No Love, that Wayne and M's verses do not belong on the same song. I kind of alluded to this when I went over it on the track listing. But just because two verses do not sound alike, just because they're approached completely differently, doesn't mean they don't belong in the same song. In my opinion, it's not a perfect marriage. Like, it is a little bit awkward, but I actually appreciate that they're attacking the beat from two completely different angles. And I think it does make it interesting. So I think that one there might be a bit of a farce. I think it's a bit unfair just because, the rappers are so different to each other that they can't somehow make a good song together. One person here says, Eminem is a god-tier lyricist, an absolutely trash artist. He picks the worst production to spit goat-level bars on. That's harsh. That is harsh, because I would like to know what beats you're talking about exactly. Obviously, like we said, some of them are generic, but I actually think overall Recovery is a pretty solidly produced album. Someone else has said, the delivery of Eminem's lyrics makes the bars less impactful, which I actually think the opposite. I actually think it makes it more impactful when he delivers with that aggressive, loud, abrasive kind of animated delivery. It makes certain lines really pop. Even when he's saying corny things, sometimes when he says it in the right way, it still kind of hits and it doesn't feel cringeworthy per se. This person here says, pretty common theme, that some of the lyrics are corny and terrible, that recovery overall is terrible, that if Eminem didn't get addicted to pills, Encore wouldn't have been as terrible, and it wouldn't have set off such a bad stretch in his career that caused him to receive such harsh criticisms of his discography that would hurt him in a lot of great debates. This is tough, because he was on drugs when he was doing Slim Shady. Well, actually, yeah, I'd have to kind of get it. I'm pretty sure he was on drugs when he was making Slim Shady LP and Marshall Mathers LP. And I thought he definitely was in Marshall Mathers LP. I remember he's talking about going to Amsterdam and trying a lot of drugs there. And I can't even imagine how much that added to his lyricism, the way he was able to weave things together. I mean, so to say that it's a two-faced coin to say that if he never got addicted to drugs, then his career would have been so much better. But if he never did the drugs in the first place, there might not even be a career, or it would be a completely different career. So you really can't say, he shouldn't have got addicted because that threw him off. It's like, if you're going to change that, then it's a butterfly effect that changes everything. So we can't really take away elements and say what it would have been, because it is what it is. And given the circumstances, I think Recovery was definitely the right album for the right time. That was definitely the album that needed to be made post addiction and post the suicide attempt and post retirement. And this comment here says, I enjoy it. I think it's overhated in his discography. A few bad songs, a few average songs, but the majority is good. And I think that's just about where I sit. I think it is definitely overhated. I mean, sure, it's overrated by certain Eminem fans. That's just about a given with that fandom. But yeah, I think if we're being objective, I think it is a light to solid 7. It's definitely above average for me, at least. And yeah, of course there are moments that bring it down, but I don't think you should. People have a problem where they think just because something's corny, the entire product is, and there's something about corniness that's almost worse than being bad. It's worse than playing the instruments poorly. It's worse than rapping poorly. When something's corny, it is a statement. It is an indictment on that artist's entire identity. So if you've got one corny song, all of a sudden the entire batch is contaminated to them. And I think that's a really unhealthy way to look at the music. Just because, you deem some bars here and there to be corny doesn't really sink the entire ship. Yeah, I think I'm able to kind of separate the corny lines here and there, the bad songs, the average moments, and really see that there are 7 to 9 really, really solid songs on this album. I would have liked the album to have been cut down to about 13 songs, and I think this would have been a really worthy addition to his discography. Yeah, I mean, look, let me know your thoughts. This was definitely a video I felt like I'd wanted to make for a while. It's something that people just kind of, they'll criticize without really backing up or having an in-depth discussion. And I just feel like Eminem's music has never been conducive to the video essay formats. Like, no one's really unpacked it. So it was an interesting little thing that I just noticed hadn't been done. So yeah, I guess that's what prompted me to make this video. But look, I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think, and I'll catch you for the next one. Cheers. See ya.
He gonna tear their ass up. Simple as that.